Hello, this is John Sifferman from physicalliving.com, and with me on the phone is my good friend Tom Venuto, who is the head guy over at burnthefat.com and Burn the Fat Inner Circle. He's been a good friend and colleague for a long time, and Tom is planning on doing a grand adventure to hike the Pacific Crest Trail. He's leaving in a couple weeks, and so he graciously has agreed to do an interview where I can just, pick his brain and see what he's up to and how he's preparing and what he's afraid of, and just learn about this big adventure that a lot of people dream about or think is completely crazy, but not very many people take. So, Tom, thank you very much for being on here today. I'm looking forward to chatting for a while.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's great to connect with you again finally.
Yeah, I know. It's been a while. A lot of my readers, know who you are already because I've mentioned your books and et cetera, but could you just give a little bit of background info about who you are, where you're from, a little bit about Burn the Fat, whatever you want to share is fine.
Sure. Yeah, I've been in the fitness industry over 25 years now. I started bodybuilding, lifting weights when I was only 14 after seeing Arnold in Conan the Barbarian, and I was hooked ever since. So my main thing has been lifting weights for all these years, not any endurance events like through hiking. I started out training people in the gyms, managing health clubs, and then when the internet became a thing, I moved my business over to online and started writing books. The book that's best known is called Burn the Fat, Feed the Muscle, which is primarily about fat loss and body transformation. And I'm the founder of an online fitness community called Burn the Fat Inner Circle, and we have thousands of members there from all over the world who get together to support each other. It's a support and motivation community, and it's also an education resource where people can come and get workout programs and recipes. And we also sponsor fitness contests like the Burn the Fat Challenge. So that's been going on now. We just had our 10th anniversary online of Burn the Fat Inner Circle. So that's pretty much my full-time gig these days, is writing and managing our online community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've worked with Tom. For people who are listening, I've worked with Tom in the past, and Burn the Fat is really it's a diamond in the rough. Like, there's a lot of different weight loss, fat loss, nutrition stuff out there, and Tom's stuff is all the best there is, in my opinion, among the best there is in the Burn the Fat Inner Circle online support community for fat loss and body transformation. It's really a one-of-a-kind place. I've been a member almost since it was founded. Posted all kinds of stuff there over the years, and so for people who are interested in transforming your body and your life, and there's no better place for it. So can you tell us a little bit about the Pacific Crest Trail? Just what it is, what does this adventure involve, and then we'll talk more about like how you're going to do it, how you're planning and preparing. But people hear, the Pacific Crest Trail, what's that? Is that like a day hike, or so can you just fill them in?
Sure. Yeah, more people have heard about the Appalachian Trail. There's 3 long-distance national scenic trails in the United States, and the Appalachian Trail is the oldest and best known. That's on the East Coast. Passes right through my state, New Jersey, and through yours, New Hampshire. It's about, I believe it's about 2,100 miles. Goes from Georgia to Mount Katahdin in Maine. There's a very little-known trail called the Continental Divide Trail. And then there's the Pacific Crest Trail, which has gotten more popular because a book was written on it called Wild, and it became an Oprah pick, and then it turned into a movie with Reese Witherspoon. So that's, for a lot of people, the only way they heard of it. They're like, oh, is that the thing from Wild? And yeah, that's it. The movie and the book are not really about through hiking. That book is more about a woman overcoming her personal losses and demons. But the trail can be through hiked 2,650 miles. It starts at the Mexican border near Campo, New Mexico, which is in the Campo, Mexico, which is in the San Diego backcountry. And it follows the crest, all of the mountain ranges, the Southern California mountain ranges, the Sierra Nevada mountain ranges, peaking out at about 13,200 feet at Forester Pass, and going near Whitney, Mount Whitney, the tallest mountain in the contiguous United States. And you can take a side trip up there. It's not part of the trail, but you can do that. Then it goes through Northern California over the Cascade Mountains, Mount Lassen, Mount Shasta, the volcanoes, and it keeps going up through the Cascades of Oregon and Washington, basically through this volcano after volcano, just up the mountain range, all the way to the Canadian border at Manning Park, British Columbia. So it's quite an epic trek, 2,650 miles. It'll probably be over 6 million steps, and the total elevation gain is 490,000 feet gained and lost.
Yeah, that's some serious backpacking. I mean, people who have never done anything like this, like me, I've never done longer than like a few days of backpacking. Like, we can't even imagine what that entails, like on the body, the mind. That's incredible. And so, yeah, 2,650 miles, all that elevation gain. So you're a crazy person. That's okay. And I'm sure, like, the number one question you're going to get is, why are you doing this? You know, why this? Why now? What's gotten into you, Tom?
That's the question everybody gets asked, because it is so crazy.
Yeah.
It's pretty outrageous. After I started thinking about it, there's a pretty long list of reasons, but I could tell you what inspired me to do it, what put it on my radar, was my trip to California last year. I'm a native Californian. A lot of people don't know that. I didn't live there that long, but I was born in Santa Clara. I lived in San Jose up until I was 10. And even though I was pretty young when my parents moved me out to the East Coast, I got a lot of memories of California because my parents took us all over the place. They took us to, when we were little kids, to Yosemite and to Lassen, up into Oregon to Crater Lake, and plus to the beaches and to the ocean near Santa Cruz. So I always loved California and remembered it. And I had started going back to California to vacation just to visit. I went out dozens of times in the last 15 years or so. And last year I decided, just as an experiment in lifestyle design, that I was, I like New Jersey. I like being near New York City. New York City is one of the greatest cities in the world, but it's loud, it's crowded, and I just wanted something different. So I moved for the whole summer last year to near San Francisco. I lived in Mill Valley for 3 months, it's a little mountain town itself. It's near Mount Tamalpais. And right out my back door were hundreds of miles of trails up to the top of the mountain, through the Marin Headlands, out to the beach, to the Muir Woods, to Muir Beach, and I basically spent the whole first month there just hiking the whole Bay Area, and I loved it. And then after I had exhausted all those local trails, I started taking road trips. And one of the greatest trips I took was up to Northern California. After visiting the Redwood country, I went up to Mount Shasta, and it was just absolutely fantastic. It's gorgeous. You can see this mountain from hundreds of miles away. And when I was up there hiking, that was the very first time I had ever heard of or come across the Pacific Crest Trail. I went to Castle Crag State Park, and I saw the PCT trailhead, and I ended up taking a day hike on it and hiked 20 miles. And so that's when it first went onto my radar. And then I went to Mount Lassen, took day hikes all around the park and up Mount Lassen, and there again, the Pacific Crest Trail was winding through the park. Later on, before I headed back to New Jersey, I went through Yosemite. And I visited the Yosemite Valley, and when I went to the Yosemite higher country of Yosemite, near Tuolumne Meadows, there again the Pacific Crest Trail. So all summer I kept crossing the Pacific Crest Trail. I spent a couple days in Mammoth and went hiking through the Ansel Adams Wilderness, and there was both the Pacific Crest Trail and the John Muir Trail again. So it just kept coming across my path, and I started to get interested in it and research it and look up all these video documentaries online. And the last thing I did in California before I came back in 2016 from my visit was I day hiked in one day up Mount Whitney, and that's the tallest mountain in the contiguous USA. It's 14,508 feet, and that's not part of the Pacific Crest Trail, but most people who thru hike the PCT will take a side trip because it's really a once in a lifetime opportunity. So at that point, I was really hooked on hiking, but I had only done day hiking. I had done zero overnight, zero backpacking. But I knew after I'd gotten back home to New Jersey that I wanted to go back and visit again, and I wanted to see more of it. I wanted to see all of it. So the more I had researched about the trail, the more the idea, even as crazy as it was, and I even told myself it's crazy. I mean, you're out of your mind. You're not going to thru hike the Pacific Crest Trail. But the idea got into my head from that trip, and it stuck, and I wasn't able to get it out of my head since. And then I just set the goal and started preparing.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So like, what has been the response from, your family, your friends, colleagues, industry colleagues? Like, what kind of responses are you getting from everybody?
It was mixed at first, and then after that it was mostly supportive because, again, my background is not in endurance. I've never been a long-distance hiker. I've never been a backpacker. I just walking. I've always enjoyed walking, and last year started getting into some serious day hikes. My main thing has been weightlifting and bodybuilding. In fact, 20 years in bodybuilding, 28 bodybuilding competitions. This is kind of the opposite of what I'm used to doing, and is going to have the opposite effect on my body. And I'm probably going to lose a lot of weight. It's inevitable that I'm going to lose some lean body mass. So the first response I got from my friends who are into weightlifting and bodybuilding is, "You're going to lose all your gains." It was half joking and half serious. Like, why are you doing this? And all this work you've done in the gym, you're going to lose it. But then as time went by and I started to share with more people, like on social media, everybody was really, really supportive, and they said, you'll get back to full-time lifting when you get home in the fall, and this is the adventure of a lifetime, so just go out and enjoy. So it was overwhelmingly positive after that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I think it's like, if you can do this, you should, because even if it's, it's going to be tremendously hard, probably the hardest thing you'll have ever done so far, I would imagine, with all the snow and everything. So I think it's amazing that you're doing it, and I can't wait to follow along with what little you can share on Instagram and however else you're going to be sharing. So, like, how are you, like, in a logistical sense, how are you pulling this off? Because, obviously you're going on a trail for 4.5, 5 months-ish. How does this look like in your normal life? Like, what's happening?
Well, in terms of my normal life, like business and staying connected, I'm not going out on the trail so I can disconnect from online, because my whole business is online. And a lot of people, they do go out to do this trail because that's what they want. They want to get away. They want to experience nature. And I want that too. But I am going to stay connected for one thing. It's just going to be a little bit limited, because there's going to be complete days, even 2 days, maybe even multiple days that I don't have a cell connection, I don't have an internet connection, or I'm really in the back country. So that's one thing. I'm going to check in every time that I get online. If I roll into camp at night and I have an internet connection, I'm going to check in. And I have to go into town to resupply food. Even when you're way out in the backcountry, you're up in the mountains, every so many miles, after so many days, you hit a road, that road leads to a town. You get off the side road, you go resupply your food. If you're tired, if you need a rest day, you take a 0 day, it's a complete day with no hiking. And I'll catch up online and with correspondence and things. So that's killing two birds with one stone. I have to resupply anyways. So I am going to stay connected. And in terms of other logistics, the resupply and the planning is really the big part of it. You got to figure out how much food you're going to carry between those resupply stations, and you don't want to run out of food, but you don't want to carry too much food either, because the more weight you're carrying, the harder it is going to be to lug that pack. Weight is everything when it comes to equipment. Back in the old days, they would be hauling 40-pound packs or more. And today, people are going ultralight. They're trying to get their packs down under 10 or 12 pounds base weight. And even when it's fully loaded, they might only have 20, 25 pounds. So, and they also have to carry water, too, and water's heavy. So that's another logistical thing to think about, especially in the Southern California section. When you're going through the desert, you don't know where the next water supply is going to be or how reliable it's going to be. So fortunately, another reason to stay connected is we have apps today. We have, you can use your iPhone GPS and get an app specifically for the trail. I'm using one called Guthooks, and it's made specifically for the Pacific Crest Trail. So it's GPS, and it'll show me if I'm on the trail or off the trail. I mean, literally within yards. If I'm pointing my body in the right direction, so if I lose the trail over snow, I can use the app to see. And as long as my electronics don't fail, then I won't need to break out a map and compass. And that helps a lot with not only navigation, but if I look on the map, there's additional information on this app that shows you where's the next water supply, where's the next food supply. So through hikers today are depending a lot on those apps. They're fantastic. I have the same app for the Appalachian Trail, and I've been out doing shakedown hikes on the Appalachian Trail, so I've gotten used to using that exact same app format, and it really helps with planning and logistics.
Yeah. I'm curious, like, how much weight are you thinking you'll be? I mean, obviously you've been testing your gear and stuff, so what's your pack weight looking like? How much food are you carrying?
At the moment,
you're going to be going through a lot of calories.
At the moment, my base weight is 15.6 pounds, which is pretty good. The PCT hikers are fanatics about their gear and their gear weight, so Most of them will keep a gear list on one of the websites that have like Lighter. I think it's LighterPack called lighterpack.com and postholder.com. They have gear lists, and you can type it all in and put your weight and see what your pack weight is. That's base weight is everything in your pack, not counting food and water. So I got a base weight of 15.6, and that's not counting extra gear I need for the Sierra. So when I get up into the mountains, because it's such a high snow year, I'm going to need an ice axe. I'm going to need foot traction. So some people are taking full crampons. I'm taking micro spikes, which will just strap onto a regular shoe or hiking boot. And I might take gaiters. I'm not sure yet. There might be a lot of post holing and deep snow up there because there's going to be snow up there through the whole summer. I mean, even at the end of June, beginning of July, there still may be really heavy snow because it was a big snow year. And then you also have to carry a bear canister. And not only is that going to be filled with food, usually they weigh a couple pounds. So there's more gear to lug through the Sierra as well. And then when you're out of those mountains, you can send that stuff home. For water, it all depends on how close the next water source is going to be. Like when you're up in the mountains, you got all this snow melting, and there's an abundance of water. You could carry one water bottle. You can carry 1 liter, and by the time you finish drinking that, you're up to the next creek, and then you just pick up your next supply of water there. If you're down in the desert, there might be 15, 20-mile stretches with no water. And sometimes you have to carry a minimum of 4 liters. I know some people that carry 5, 6. I've heard people carrying more. And that's 2 pounds per liter. So then your pack, whether you're carrying a lot of water or you're carrying a lot of food, the pack, then it can get pretty heavy. Then you can be closer to total pack weight of the upper 20s, 30 pounds if you're hauling a lot of water and food.
Yeah. So you're starting a little bit later in the season than most people do, I think, because of the record snowfall this year. What's like your plan? Like I've seen you mention you're going to be trying to average a marathon a day and limiting your zeros. Like what's your plan for doing this in your timeline over the next few months?
Yeah, you're right. I am starting late. It was for a lot of reasons. It's partly because of the weather. There's people right now who started in late March, which is an early start. The herd, the biggest group, will start in April, right around mid-April. But really, the biggest crowd is already out on the trail, has already left. Some of the earliest starters already got up to the edge of the Sierras. It's a place called Kennedy Meadows, and the people who are really experienced in snow travel, or they're real mountaineers, they're not just hikers. They're going on into the Sierra right now through really, really heavy snow. Some people got up there and they looked at the conditions and they said, I'm not ready to go through this. It's gonna be a slog. So they're taking a break. They're getting off trail for a little while. So for some people, if they started too early, it really didn't help them because you really just can't get through the Sierra this early without having to go through some really bad conditions. So yeah, that was one reason I decided to start late. But there's pros and cons of every way you do it. The longer you wait in the season, the hotter it gets down in the desert. So you're starting down there at the Mexican border in the San Diego backcountry, and this past week it's been up in the high 90s. And then you're going to go along the Anza Borrego Desert, so it's a hot, dry area. Go over some of the Southern California mountains, and then drop down again to skirt the Mojave Desert, and it was up to 105 last week there. So you have to worry about the heat and the water. Some people even hike at night, or they'll at least start before sunrise at like 4 in the morning to beat the heat. So, I mean, there's a lot of things to think about with a start date, and in any case, it's a short window because by the time you get all the way up north to Washington, you have to beat the winter. You got to beat the snow in Washington. So the winter, you can start to get snow, and at the higher elevations, it can snow just about any time, but you start to get snow late September, early October, and by the time you're into mid-October, it can be full-on winter, and it gets really dangerous. A hiker went missing last year heading into a storm in mid-October in Washington. So it's a fairly short window. It's the average hiking time is 5 months. The range is anywhere from ultra marathoners who get it done in 3 months or less to people taking 6 months. But you got to get done in that window. So it's going to be tough for me because I'm starting late. It's definitely my goal to through hike the whole thing and make it to Washington, but I'm okay with it mentally if I don't get all the way through. I'm not going to get into any dangerous situation. Even if I get through all of California, I would be really happy. And if it's getting too late in the season, then I'm just going to bail out and be safe. But yeah, the goal is to do the whole thing, but that's going to require it'll take 20 to 30 miles a day.
Yeah, that's some serious, especially over those elevation changes. There'll be some crazy step counting. Let me tell you. All right, so can we talk a little bit about like your fitness prep? Like, you don't just leave and start carrying 30 pounds a day over 20 to 30 miles a day up and down elevation. Like, how, obviously you did a lot of hiking last year, but like, what has your overall fitness preparation look like? How do you train to backpack basically a marathon every day up and down insane elevation?
Well, the short answer is the best way to train for backpacking is to backpack, is to get out there on a trail that's similar to the trail you're going to be hiking on with a similar pack. The only thing, obviously, is it's the same thing, I think, with hiking as it is with weightlifting. You got to use progressive overload. You can't bite off more than you can chew at first, or you're going to get injured. So I've gradually built up. I've built up my distance. I've built up my pack weight. I've built up the elevation gain. And since I'm out here on the East Coast, like I said, the Appalachian Trail passes through New Jersey within an hour and 15 minutes of where I live, drive or train ride, and within about an hour and 15 minutes up in New York State. So I've been taking backpacking trips both to get in shape physically and to test out my gear. And I think that's just as important part of training is testing out your gear. And I think I might have been in trouble in a few places if I hadn't gotten out and tested out gear, because I've swapped some gear, replaced some gear, ditched a lot of stuff that was weight I didn't need to carry. And I got to get out in the trail and experience what it's like to carry that pack. So like you said, my training really did start last year with a lot of day hiking, but there was never a heavy pack. It was always just with a day pack, and it was never overnight. So what was different this year is I started doing an overnight and then 2 nights and then 3 nights. I actually haven't been out more than a 3-day trip. So I mean, it's going to be a big jump from just doing short backpacking trips up to what I'm going to have to do on the PCT. But I have gotten up to the distance that I thought and the elevation I thought I would have to cover out on the actual trail. My last shakedown hike on the AT, I did 26 miles with 26 pounds in the pack, and there was about 4,500 feet of elevation gain, and that was tough. It was even tougher on the AT because the AT is a really rugged trail. The trails go straight up. There's very little switchbacking up the hills like on the East Coast, and it's rocky, whereas the paths are more smooth. It's just easier. It's easier going on the PCT in terms of the trail itself compared to the AT. So I think I've been out. My training has been to get out in the conditions that I'm going to, or worse, that I'm going to be out on the PCT, and to gradually build that up. There really hasn't been anything special I do in the gym. In fact, people find it odd. I like to train, old school bodybuilding, weightlifting in the gym, and I haven't really changed that much. A lot of trainers have given me their opinions, like, well, what you should do is you should do this work for your core, and you should strap on a backpack and get on the step mill, and you should do the farmer's walks, and every trainer had a different idea of what I should be doing in the gym. But the only thing I did different in the gym is I started doing more step-ups with different heights of blocks, and I did a lot of Bulgarian split squats, and I did less leg machines, like less leg extensions or leg presses, because I didn't think that would be as functional. But aside from that, I didn't change my training at all in the gym. It's all been training out in the trail.
Mhm. Yeah. I think that's the smartest approach. You got to train that specificity, and backpacking is the best conditioning for backpacking. And it's probably more fun than, wearing a backpack on a step machine, too. So you're planning on continuing to lift weights, at least some, while you're on the trail. How is that going to work? Like, what's your plan, and what will you be doing?
Well, that's a good question.
How much?
Yeah, a lot of people say a lot of people say forget about it. Don't even try it, Tom. That's not going to happen. To the best of my knowledge, nobody's ever done it before. I mean, somebody has to have at least tried, but I can't, on any of the forums, on any of the Facebook groups, I can't find anybody who has done it or anybody who says it's even possible. Everybody says there's no way you're going to lift. When you get done doing 25 miles in a day or even 20 miles, the only thing you're going to want to do is crash. And where are you going to do it? But the way I figure, I can't see any reason not to lift at least once a week if I really want to. and maybe even twice a week, because again, I have to get off to go and resupply food. So that means going into towns. And it just so happens that a lot of those towns have gyms. So it's just a matter of having the will and the goal to do it. And I think even 1 or 2 workouts a week lifting will help me maintain a lot of my lean body mass, because it's really hard to eat enough on trail. I might be burning 5,000 calories a day, 6,000 or more on a really tough day. I won't be able to eat that much. I won't be able to carry that much food. I may not be able to eat it physically. You could lose your appetite when you get up at altitude. People talk about how you get really hungry, and you do, but sometimes you don't feel like eating that much, even if you could carry it, or even if you can stomach it. 5,000, 6,000 calories is a ton of food. So almost everybody loses weight on trail, and sometimes they get really skinny if they make it all the way up to Washington by the time they get there. So I think that continuing to try to do a little bit of weight training is going to help reduce that muscle mass. Keep eating protein, keep eating as much quality food as I can, because a lot of people, they just eat a junk food diet. And plus, the other reason that I want to do this is because I've been lifting weights for 30 years. And if I were to keep lifting even just once a week while I'm out there, I would keep a streak alive. I haven't missed more than a week of planned workouts in 30 years.
Now I see the real reason, Tom.
But I'm okay. I'm okay with it. I'm realistic. I know it may not work out, and I'm prepared for the first time in my life to just embrace the trail experience without doing any lifting and finish up. But we'll see what happens. I mean, I actually know I'm probably the only person who's ever done this, but I actually know where the gyms are in the towns where I go to get resupply. Sometimes there's a motel, a grocery store, and a gym, like all right there in the same little small town in walking distance. So it is doable, and I think it'll be easy for upper body. Lower body might be another story. I don't know about how I feel about squats after 25 miles on the trail.
Yeah, with a pack too. Yeah. So so can we go a little deeper into it? Like, what kind of training? Like, more upper body? You gonna stick with, just like hit everything once a week or twice a week? Like, what's your program?
Well, it probably makes sense to fall back to a more minimalist and basic workout. I don't think it makes sense to do any kind of bodybuilding, body part split while I'm out there, because if I can only train, if twice a week is optimistic and once a week is likely, then I would definitely want to do a full body workout. I would do my legs if I felt up to it. I know what it feels like to try to squat and to try to do lunges and things like that after a day of long hiking, because I tried it before. I tried last year. I did 26 miles up in Mammoth Lakes, and there's a great gym there in Mammoth Lakes, and I went to train the next day, and I know what it feels like. It's really, really tough. It's doable, but it's tough. And then I try to imagine, okay, I'm hiking every single day, and now try to lift. So I'm definitely going to try to do upper body, and I'll try to get through full body workout. If I take a 0 day, which means I'm going to check in, stay overnight, I'll get to recover overnight, and then the next day recovering more, and I'm just shopping, picking up my food. And I think if I were to train that night after a 0 day when I got 24 hours of recovery, I don't think it's going to be a problem. It's more going to be a matter of having the will to do it.
Yeah, I would imagine too, especially, if you're doing squats and the next day you're right back on the trail, that's going to be hard, just as hard getting back on the trail, because you're going to be sore and just, yeah.
What I found out, because I have experimented with this a little bit, just after backpacking and day hiking, is I could actually train in the morning and then go out and trail all day, and my legs might get sore as the day goes on, and that I can deal with, because your legs are going to be dead after 25 miles or even 20 miles anyways. So it's just what's a little extra soreness. What I find is absolutely the hardest is just to have the motivation or the will to want to train after doing 20 or 25 miles. And just having the physical energy to do it, it's really hard. So, I'm not seeing myself doing a lower body lifting workout at the end of a day after a long hiking day. Maybe if I took a short day, if it was a 10 or a 15-mile day, most likely the next morning and after a 0 day. Upper body, I don't think it's going to be an issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And some of the thru hikers that I only know a handful, but they've all said that, their lower body development was, fine. They lost some muscle, yeah, but, fine after thru hiking, but the upper body development definitely decreases over that period. So,
right.
Wondering, like, what are you doing for injury prevention? Like, have you experienced any injuries from this uptick in hiking this last year? Like, do you have a plan for that, or don't think it'll be a big issue?
No, it could be an issue, and to be honest with you, I have concerns about that, and I probably need to plan better because there's a couple things I experienced so far. One is heel pain, which could be either plantar fasciitis or it could be Achilles tendonitis. I don't know. I haven't had it diagnosed, but those are the symptoms. Sometimes it's usually in the heel, but sometimes I even feel sore up in the Achilles, so I'm not sure which. And I noticed, this is just in the last year, a slight bone spur on the back of each heel. So, when I accelerate this up to every day, I don't know what's going to happen there. So far, it's been mild, and it flares up sometimes to moderate, but it hasn't been serious. Hasn't taken me off the trail from long day hikes or short backpacks. So that's something on the back of my mind. The only thing I've done so far for that is making sure to religiously stretch the calves and stretch the Achilles. And I know there's some other things I can do. I don't know how I'll do this on trail, but you can foam roll and you can use a ball on the sole of your feet, and there's a few other things that have been recommended. But I don't, aside from stretching, I don't have another plan for that. But what really concerned me is after my biggest day out training on the AT, that was the day I did 26 miles with a full pack on, I started to get some lateral knee pain in my right knee. And that really concerned me. At the very end of the day, it was a little bit sore. It wasn't too bad. It didn't stop me. I made it through the whole day. Then I did the next day after about 10 miles. It started getting a little bit worse. And it wasn't really bad, but I had planned a 3-day, and I decided to bail out. I got up to High Point State Park in New Jersey and hopped on the train at Port Jervis and went back home just because I didn't want to aggravate it any further. The next day it felt a little better. 48 hours later I didn't feel anything in the knee. So I'm hoping it's just one of those things that it was just hurt. It wasn't injured, and it was just fatigue. But it's in the back of my mind. It concerns me. There's a lot of people that bail out in the early part of the trail. They don't even get out of Southern California. So I don't have a plan for what happens if knee pain flares up, other than to slow down my pace, to not make it a race, to be okay with not making it all the way through to the Canadian border. I'm just going to take it one day at a time, and I'm just really going to listen to my body.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it. It's the only way we can do it. So, I'd also I guess before I do want to talk about what you'll be eating in a bit, but are there any other specific challenges or that you anticipate or things you're afraid of? I mean, like you mentioned bears, I know rattlesnakes, the weather, the snow. What are the challenges? What are some of your fears about this trip? I guess I'll leave it open-ended.
There are some fears and challenges I think that all the thru hikers think about or have. For some people, it's a fear. For other people, it's just it's just a challenge to overcome. A lot of the things that people who are not hikers think we should be afraid of are not the things that are as serious as others. Like the first thing that pops into most people's minds is, are you going to get eaten by a bear?
Yeah.
And I think they just saw The Revenant after that comment. But the truth is, there's different species of bears, and it's the grizzly bears that are known to be more aggressive. And there have been attacks in Yellowstone, and I think up in Montana, and I believe they go up into Canada. And people will carry bear spray for protection, and they'll avoid hiking alone. They'll go in groups. But in California, there's no grizzly bears. There's a lot of black bears, and the black bears are a major concern for some reason. But some people, they're a wild animal. They're unpredictable, so I don't think it should be taken lightly. But a lot of people joke around that they're just like oversized raccoons. They're curious. They want your food. And usually when you make noise or startle them, they run away. The main concern about bears is protecting your food for your own sake and for the bear's sake. So if they get, you never want to feed a bear intentionally, but a lot of thru hikers end up feeding a bear unintentionally because they don't protect their food, or they don't keep a clean camp. They're eating in their tent, and then they're storing their food with them in their tent, and the whole thing smells like food. And that's inviting a visitor at night, So not so much a personal safety issue as your food getting stolen, or the bears who get human food a lot become problem bears, and then they start going after more human food, and then the rangers sometimes have to interfere and move the bears, or even kill the bears. So that's one thing to think about. When you get up into the national parks, Sequoia and Kings Canyon, Yosemite, we're required to carry a bear canister for safe storage of our food. So that's one thing. People talk about mountain lions, but I mean, most people never see one. They're very, very reclusive, and as far as I know, there's no record of an attack on the Pacific Crest Trail. There have been sightings, but it's really extremely rare. Rattlesnakes, for sure, you got to watch where you're stepping. I haven't heard of anybody getting bitten on the PCT. I did hear about somebody getting bitten on the Appalachian Trail, and that person was wearing a Walkman listening to music. So if it was a rattler rattling away, they didn't hear him, and you really gotta pay attention to the trail ahead of you, watch where you step. I think most people who get bitten by rattlesnakes are trying to mess with the snake, trying to pick it up with a pole, or just they basically want to be left alone and just give them a wide berth, and you don't have to worry about that. So as far as wildlife goes, that's about it. You can protect your food from rodents too, that kind of thing. And then the weather and the snow is a big concern and fear for everybody, especially this year. This is the biggest snow year in the Sierra since 2011, and one of the biggest in history. And usually it's not considered safe for a hiker, somebody who's not a mountaineer, to go up into the Sierra before mid-June. And this year everything is going to get pushed back. So even if I don't get there until the first week in July, there's still going to be a ton of snow up there. I mean, this place is up there. There's still 20 feet of snow right now. And once it starts getting hot, it melts down quickly. But then that means you have to go through wet melting snow, and so you post-hole, you fall into your knees, fall into your waist even, and it's just incredibly slow going. And then it gets cold at night at those high elevations, so the slopes get slippery. So we got to be careful with, anytime we're on a slope, we got to be careful to keep wear the foot traction, really step carefully, and almost everybody's taking an ice axe this year. So in the case you do fall, you can self-arrest on the way down. So watching out for the snow. And then the other thing, which might be the biggest one of all, with all that snow melting out, is the creeks are going to be full. They may even be flooded, and there's a lot of creeks you have to cross. So you come up to a creek, you got to assess whether it's safe to cross, or whether you have to go upstream or find a log or find a rock crossing. And a lot of people are concerned about that. So there's a lot to think about in terms of safety. Most of them aren't the things that most people, your family and friends, worry about, but there's a lot to think about.
Yeah, I mean, I'd imagine the weather is probably one of the biggest risks. I mean, everybody's terrified of bears and rattlesnakes and lions and everything, but the weather, I mean, that could kill you in a night if you don't know what you're doing. And
yeah,
imagine altitude can be an issue too.
There's 12 mountain passes to cross in the Sierras that are over 10,000 feet, and you got to watch the weather for thunderstorms and lightning too, and decide, am I going to make it over this pass, up and down this pass? If you see dark clouds collecting around the pass that you were planning on going over, you got to make a decision on whether you're just going to hunker down and camp, or if you're going to move forward. So lightning is another really big concern. If you're up on an exposed ridge, that's another real big concern too. Not to mention, just getting caught in a storm. And at the elevations in the Sierra Mountains, it can snow any time. I mean, it's snowing right now. It snowed up, and it can snow any time of the year up in places like Mount Whitney. So you got thunderstorms and lightning and snow, and it can get cold. There can be really wild fluctuations in temperature. So you just got to be ready for it.
Yeah. What an adventure, man. So I want to talk about your diet. What are you eating? Are you going to be following the burn the fat, feed the muscle plan while you're on the trail? Are you just going to eat what you can, where you can? I just want to hear what you're thinking.
This is really one of my biggest concerns, because a lot of people go into this and they're like, yes, I can eat anything I want, and still lose weight or still stay lean, and maybe not even affect your health. I mean, if you're that active and you're losing weight, those two things, might offset some of the negative effects of some junk. But I don't really like eating a ton of junk food, and I'm only going to eat it if I have to out of necessity, because there's nothing else available. But I mean, the food, it's a big issue. I really don't have it even completely figured out yet. Some of it's going to get figured out on trail, but I do know I'm going to save weight and trouble by going stoveless. I already made that decision early on. So it would be real nice to have a hot meal on those cold days, but I'm going to deal with it. So what that means is most of the food actually that I'm going to take with me is going to be similar to what I already eat. Like I already eat oatmeal every day. Sometimes I eat it twice a day, and that's a number one hiker food. And a lot of hikers get sick of it, but I've been eating oatmeal every day for 25 years, so it's not a problem. I could even eat that twice a day. What I'm going to do is bump the calories up by dropping in, half a cup of raisins, and now I'm up to, what's that? Now I'm up to 600 calories. And just to keep my protein up, I'll throw in a scoop of protein powder or a scoop and a half, and then I'm up to 750, 800 calories right there in one meal. I could eat that once or twice. I could also add some dried nuts if I want to get the calories up even more. If I have access to it, I get some muesli, which is, again, it's either oatmeal or other whole grain cereal grains mixed with dried fruit and different kinds of nuts, and that's extremely high calorie density. So that's another possibility. I can take rice with me, and what I'll have to do is get the pre-cooked rice. Like there's brands that come in a boil-in bag. It's been already cooked, so it doesn't take the 40 minutes or an hour that it would usually take. Usually you cook it for 10 minutes. But what you do if you're going stoveless is you bring a jar with you. Like you can take a plastic peanut butter jar, clean it out, and that's your rehydration jar. Add a cup and a half of water. Add your rice, put the cap on and just tuck it away in your pack. In 2 hours, it's rehydrated. And yeah, it's cold, but it's ready to eat. So, and it's one ingredient food. It's just brown rice. There's nothing added. If I can't find that, I'll have to buy some of the rice dinners like Knorr, because there's a lot of junk in it, ridiculous amount of sodium and preservatives. But that's going to be available in absolutely every grocery store in Trail Town. But I'm going to try to just go with regular brown rice. Tortillas, whole grain tortillas are a favorite of almost all hikers because they pack down real nice. You have a couple of those, it's pretty high in calories. Usually people smear it with peanut butter. If I have some dried fruit like dried apples, I'll put that on there. So there's all kinds of things you can put in tortillas. I see some really ridiculous tortillas on the PCT Instagram accounts. Like I see someone put peanut butter on tortilla and then put Oreos and Snickers bars on it. It's pretty funny. A lot of thru hikers just they don't care. They're eating. It's a matter of just getting the calories in. So Pop-Tarts and Oreos and Snickers, they're real high on most people's list, and I'm gonna do my best to keep those to a minimum. I am gonna bring some bars, lots of nuts and trail mix and bars. Hopefully some that have a little bit of protein, but also are high in calories. That way I can just keep walking and eat 2 or 3 of my meals while I'm still walking. So it won't be too far off my usual diet, but I'm gonna have to make some changes so it's portable and it's light. And then when I get in town, I'm gonna be operating on a deficit the whole time I'm on the trail, most likely. So when I get into town, I'm gonna try to eat back some of the calories, and believe me, I'm gonna enjoy some burgers and pizza on the way too. So, but probably about 80% of my calories, I'm still gonna try to be as healthy as possible. I just don't like eating a ton of junk food unless I absolutely have to, because it's the only thing that's available on the trail.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm really surprised you're not going to be following, low carb diet while you're doing it. It sounds like you're going to be eating a lot of carbs. You're going to get all fat, and your hormones are going to get all out of whack. And
there was a discussion on one of the PCT Facebook groups about, hey, is anybody doing keto on the trail? And believe it or not, there's a small group of people, and that just blows my mind that you'd even consider that.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't even get it. I mean, you're going to eat 70% fat while you're on the trail, and it doesn't even compute. I don't understand, but whatever. To each his own. Hike your own hike, they say.
Yep. Well, I really admire that you're trying to eat well while you're on it, because it's a challenge. Our friend Damien Tuga over at Outside Ways, it was really important. He hiked the AT with his family a couple of years ago, and it was really important that they eat really well. Eat good, healthy, nutritious food, and they did a really good job. And they said there were some times that they'd stop off the trail and they'd have a gas station basically where they could resupply their food, so it wasn't the best choices. But so you do what you can and enjoy a cheeseburger, pizza, whatever, when you feel like it. So that's awesome. All right, well, I'm kind of starting to wrap up. I'd kind of like to know, what's next after the thru hike? Have you thought that far? What's next for Tom Venuto come fall?
I don't know what's next. The only thing I know for sure is I'm going to go back into full-time lifting mode for sure. Because I really don't know how I'm going to react physically and psychologically to this. I mean, it's really possible this will be the first time in my whole adult life that I get skinny. And again, I'm going to try to avoid that as much as possible, but I know I'm going to lose weight. Almost everybody loses a lot of weight on trail. So, at the end of the trail, I know I'm going to be really eager to get back into full lifting, especially if it turns out that it's harder to do even just one workout in town a week, and I end up not lifting. I'm going to want to get back to lifting, and I'm going to put some muscle back on. I haven't thought ahead to what's next after this. People are like, oh, you're going to hike the Appalachian Trail? And I'm like, I really don't know. I mean, I don't know if this is going to be a one-time thing. We're going to see how my body holds out, how my knees and feet and joints hold out, and we'll see how I enjoy it. Because I've enjoyed backpacking trips, but again, what's the longest I've done is just a few days out on the AT. So being out there for 4.5 months, we'll see. I'm just going to tackle this one goal first, and then see what happens.
Awesome. Well, hey, I'm really excited for you. I wish you the best. I wish you safety and the kind of adventure that you're hoping for. I know it's going to be an adventure no matter what happens, and so I'm really looking forward to following along and be rooting for you. So I'd like to know, where's the best place for people to learn more about you, your work, and your journey? I know you're going to be sharing it in a couple spots, so I want to make sure people know where to look.
Sure. Yeah. For fitness info, my blog is Burn the Fat Blog, and that's health and fitness, weight training, fat loss, and so on. And our members only, that's a public site, the blog. And our members only community is burnthefatinnercircle.com. Plus, you can find the book, Burn the Fat, Feed the Muscle, at any bookstore at Amazon.com. And we're on Facebook at facebook.com/burnthefat. Plus, you can send me a friend request if you want. I'm going to do a short journal of the thru hike on outsideways.com. And it'll be categorized under Pacific Crest Trail, and my username there is Meathead Hikes, so you can look me up there. And I'm also going to be posting pictures from Instagram, and I'll be using Instagram because it's going to be easy from the trail. I can just take a picture from my iPhone and write a little caption and upload it while, without even stopping even from my phone. And that's Instagram.com/Meathead Hikes. So you can keep track. I've been posting there already about some pre-hike stuff and some of the training hikes, and I'll be hitting the trail. My first day is May 22nd, so that's when I'll start posting on Instagram.
Awesome. Also, how many ounces does that iPhone weigh?
Oh, let me see. I can look at my gear list. I have every piece down
on the spot.
Down to the ice. 5.7 ounces, including the LifeProof case.
Awesome. It's probably worth every ounce too.
Yeah, it's a must.
It's your Star Trek technology right there.
That's it.
So, all right. Well, I guess we'll wrap up now. Tom, this was a pleasure chatting with you. I'm really looking forward to following along, and I hope that when you get back, whether you've succeeded or not, hopefully you will have succeeded, getting all the way up to Washington. I'd love to do a follow-up interview to hear all about it, because I'm sure it's going to be quite an adventure.
For sure. I'd be glad to. Thanks.